The episode opens with Lucy entering the bank in a noticeably upbeat and self-assured mood, carrying with her the belief that she has finally begun to understand how to balance her natural curiosity with a more controlled approach to responsibility, and this newfound confidence is immediately apparent in the way she interacts with both Viv and Mr. Mooney, speaking with a calm certainty that suggests she sees herself as someone who has grown beyond her previous mistakes. And while Viv is cautiously supportive, Mr. Mooney remains openly skeptical, having witnessed to many of Lucy's turning points dissolve into chaos to take this one at face value. And this tension between Lucy's self-perception and others' expectations sets the stage for the episode's central conflict, which begins to take shape when the bank becomes involved in handling a delicate situation involving a client whose requests require careful coordination and discretion, creating an environment where even small errors could have noticeable consequences. And Mr. Mooney, determined to avoid unnecessary risk, initially attempts to keep Lucy at a distance from anything critical, assigning her routine tasks that minimize her involvement. But Lucy, eager to prove that she can be trusted with more meaningful responsibility, persists in asking for a chance to contribute, presenting herself as someone who has learned from past experiences and is now capable of handling situations with the appropriate level of judgment. And after some reluctance, Mr. Mooney agrees to give her a limited role, emphasizing that she must follow instructions precisely and avoid making independent decisions unless absolutely necessary. And Lucy accepts these conditions with apparent sincerity, determined to demonstrate that she can operate within boundaries, and at first, she succeeds in maintaining this balance, carefully executing her duties and resisting the urge to insert herself into areas that are not explicitly her responsibility. But as the situation develops, small details begin to attract her attention. Subtle inconsistencies and incomplete information that spark her curiosity and create a sense that there is more going on beneath the surface than what has been explained. And despite her efforts to remain disciplined, Lucy finds herself mentally piecing together these fragments, forming hypotheses and imagining scenarios that extend beyond the available evidence. And this internal process gradually pulls her back toward her familiar pattern of behavior, where observation turns into interpretation, and interpretation leads to action. And the turning point occurs when Lucy encounters a piece of information that seems particularly significant, convincing her that there may be an overlooked issue that requires immediate attention. And rather than bringing her concerns directly to Mr. Mooney or seeking clarification, she decides to investigate on her own, believing that she can resolve the matter quietly and efficiently without causing disruption. And this decision marks the beginning of a new chain of events as Lucy begins to gather additional information, ask indirect questions, and make small adjustments in an attempt to confirm her suspicions. And while her actions are initially subtle, they begin to interfere with the established flow of communication and coordination, creating confusion among those involved and introducing inconsistencies that were not present before. And Viv, noticing that Lucy's behavior has shifted, attempts to intervene by encouraging her to share her concerns openly rather than acting independently. But Lucy, convinced that she is on the verge of uncovering something important, continues to pursue her line of inquiry, believing that the ends will justify the means. And as the situation escalates, the consequences of her actions become increasingly visible, culminating in a moment where her interference disrupts a key interaction, drawing attention from both the client and Mr. Mooney, who quickly realizes that Lucy has once again stepped beyond her assigned role. And the confrontation that follows is charged with frustration and urgency as Mr. Mooney demands an explanation while attempting to contain the fallout from the disruption. And Lucy, caught between defending her reasoning and recognizing the impact of her actions, struggles to articulate her intentions in a way that justifies the outcome. And this moment of tension highlights the central theme of the episode, which is Lucy's ongoing difficulty in distinguishing between meaningful insight and imagined significance, a challenge that continues to undermine her efforts to improve. and as the situation reaches its peak, Lucy is forced to confront the reality that her attempt to handle things independently has created more problems than it's solved, leading to a brief but important moment of self-awareness where she acknowledges that her approach was flawed. And this realization prompts a shift in her behavior as she steps back and allows others to take control, offering assistance only when directed rather than attempting to lead the resolution. And this change, while not dramatic, helps stabilize the situation as the original plan is re-established and the remaining issues are addressed in a more structured manner. And through a combination of effort, cooperation, and a bit of luck, the situation is ultimately resolved without lasting damage, though not without reinforcing the pattern that has defined Lucy's journey. And in the aftermath, Mr. Mooney delivers a familiar but slightly softened lecture, emphasizing that while Lucy's instincts are not entirely misguided, her tendency to act on incomplete information continues to be her greatest weakness. And Lucy listens with a level of attentiveness that suggests she is beginning to internalize these lessons, even if she cannot yet fully apply them consistently. And Viv provides a more encouraging perspective, reminding Lucy that growth is a gradual process and that each mistake brings her closer to understanding how to balance her strengths and weaknesses. And the episode concludes with a return to the bank's normal routine, but with a subtle shift in Lucy's demeanor, as she appears slightly more thoughtful and measured, though still unmistakably herself. And this is reinforced in the final moment, where Lucy notices a small, curious detail that immediately captures her attention. Her expression shifting from calm reflection to intrigued excitement, hinting that while she may be learning and evolving, her fundamental nature remains unchanged, ensuring that the cycle of curiosity, misinterpretation, and comedic consequence will continue, providing both the humor and the heart that define her character and the series as a whole. And as the episode moves beyond that resolution, the lingering emotional and comedic echoes of Lucy's actions begin to settle into a quieter rhythm, creating a reflective stretch that reveals more about her internal struggle than any of the larger, more chaotic moments that came before. Because even though the situation has been resolved and the immediate consequences have been contained, Lucy does not immediately return to her usual carefree attitude, instead showing signs of genuine contemplation as she replays the events in her mind, attempting to pinpoint exactly where her judgment shifted from reasonable concern to unnecessary interference. And this process is visible not only in her expressions, but also in the way she approaches her work, moving with a deliberate slowness that contrasts sharply with her typical impulsiveness, as if she is trying to retrain herself to think before acting. And Viv, ever perceptive, notices this change and engages Lucy in a conversation that gently explores her thoughts, encouraging her to articulate what she has learned rather than simply internalizing it. And Lucy, in a rare moment of clarity, admits that her biggest challenge is not her lack of understanding, but her inability to trust that understanding in the moment, explaining that she often feels a sudden urgency to act that overrides her better judgment, a realization that adds depth to her character by highlighting the tension between her instincts and her intentions. And Mr. Mooney, observing from a distance, remains cautiously watchful, recognizing that while Lucy's self-awareness is a positive sign, it does not guarantee lasting change, especially given her history of reverting to old habits under pressure. And this skepticism sets up the final test of the episode, which arrives in the form of a small but ambiguous situation that would normally trigger Lucy's curiosity, involving a minor inconsistency that is noticeable but not immediately significant. And the scene slows down deliberately as Lucy becomes aware of it, her expression shifting in a way that signals the familiar spark of intrigue. But instead of reacting instantly, she pauses, visibly weighing her options and recalling the lessons she has just been forced to confront. And this hesitation becomes a pivotal moment, representing a conscious effort to break the cycle that has defined her behavior. And after a brief internal struggle, Lucy chooses a different approach, deciding to seek confirmation before taking action, bringing the matter to Mr. Mooney in a calm and straightforward manner rather than attempting to investigate it on her own, and this decision, though simple, marks a meaningful step forward as it demonstrates her willingness to prioritize clarity over control, and the outcome reinforces this choice, as the issue is quickly resolved without complication, revealing that it was indeed a minor matter that did not require elaborate intervention, and the reactions from those around her reflect a subtle but important shift as Mr. Mooney acknowledges her decision with restrained approval, and Viv responds with quiet encouragement, recognizing that this moment represents genuine progress rather than temporary restraint. And Lucy herself seems to understand the significance of what she has done, not in an exaggerated or celebratory way, but with a quiet sense of accomplishment that suggests she is beginning to grasp the balance she has been struggling to achieve, and as the episode approaches its final moments, the tone softens into a blend of humor and reflection, with Lucy returning to her usual interactions but carrying with her a slightly more grounded perspective, joking with Viv about her tendency to turn small details into major events while also acknowledging that she might be learning, slowly but surely, how to distinguish between what truly matters and what does not, and yet, in true Lucy fashion, the closing beat ensures that this growth does not come at the expense of her defining traits, as she notices one last peculiar detail, something just ambiguous enough to spark her imagination, and her expression shifts once again, this time balancing curiosity with restraint, suggesting that while she may never fully escape her instincts, she is gradually learning how to navigate them, and the camera lingers on this moment of thoughtful intrigue, leaving the audience with the sense that Lucy's journey is not about eliminating chaos, but about finding a way to coexist with it, allowing her to remain the same vibrant, unpredictable character while slowly evolving into someone who can channel that energy with greater awareness, ensuring that the cycle of comedy and growth continues in a way that feels both familiar and refreshingly nuanced.